kind of dreary here.
It's beautiful right now, but it's supposed to get a little ugly later.
Yeah, I let them know.
Quiet because one person up here.
Okay, you're live. You're live and ready to go.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. So to be clear, I'm sitting at the McCullough hearing room by myself. And the other 4 members of the select board are on Zoom. So I'm calling the select board meeting to order at 8 o'clock on August the 26th, 2022. So happy Friday, everyone. And Mr. Purple is going to be right back. He had to go get someone to be quiet downstairs. Okay, we've got one agenda item today. We're going to start with public comment first. Is there anyone in the public at all?
There's one person, but nobody has their hand raised.
Okay. All right, so no public comment, so we're going to go right into our one agenda item. So I want to provide some background on this morning's agenda item. An article was included on the 2017 annual town meeting warrant to consider selling Fayetteville Hall. It was the second time that the sale had been brought forth. It was also brought forth in 2016 and failed to pass. The article did pass in 2017 by the requisite 2/3 vote because it was real estate. A proposed amendment to require that a preservation restriction be put on the building as a condition of sale did not pass. The Board of Selectmen at that time asked town meeting not to tie their hands because we all knew selling the building was going to be difficult as it was. It was in poor condition at the time of the vote, and the town had no use for it, nor did it want to spend the significant sum of money it would take to properly rehab the building. It was also clear that town meeting did not want the building to be demolished. The town only received one bid for Fayetteville Hall during the initial bid process. That purchase price was $5,000. The Board of Selectmen at the time rejected that bid and put the property back out to bid. A company owned by John Deli Priscoli bid on the property and was able to negotiate a P&S with the Board of Selectmen at that time. The P&S was signed on February 13th, 2019 for a purchase price of $21,000. The sale closed on October 22nd, 2019. The P&S included a rider. They gave Southborough a right of first refusal. The buyer also granted Southborough a permanent easement for 12 parking places in the adjacent parking lot to be used for Fayetteville Park parking, which was properly recorded. So now I want to read the actual rider addendum that talks about the right of first refusal. It's short. Buyer agrees to grant to seller right of first refusal to reacquire the subject property at an agreed upon sale price, which reflects the fair market value at the time the right of first refusal is exercised. If buyer does not have a purchase agreement from a third party, which sets the fair market value of the property, which is our case, and I added that piece of it, then both buyer and seller will obtain a contemporary appraisal. And if they cannot agree to a sales price, then the parties can elect to either obtain a third appraisal to set a purchase price or seek mediation of the sales price. This provision shall survive closing, which is why we're here today, because it did survive closing. So short and sweet, it's not a typical right of first refusal as far as how the documents are done, but it is what it is. So that's why we're here this morning, is to basically deal with that right of first refusal that the town has on Fayetteville Hall. Okay, so here we are. The select board has received a letter from Mr. Priscoli requesting that select board waive its right of first refusal to allow Mr. Priscoli to execute a bargain purchase sale with the Southport Historical Society for $100. In essence, Mr. Priscoli is donating the property. The Southport Historical Society has announced plans to rehab Fayetteville Hall to its original state and put a preservation restriction on it. You can read about their plans on their website. The agreement between the Southport Historical Society and Mr. Priscoli states that if the select board does not agree to waive its right of first refusal, then the deal between the two will be null and void. We are here this morning to discuss whether the select board would like to exercise its right of first refusal. Since I'm the only one sitting here, I'm going to start the discussion, then I'll turn to the 4 other members on Zoom and call them as I see them. So I will vote to release the right of first refusal. I do not recommend that the town repurchase Fayetteville Hall. Town meeting overwhelmingly voted to dispose of the property in 2017. We have several possible, very large building projects currently being contemplated and also very expensive projects being contemplated. And I don't want to add another for which we have no current use. Additionally, if we were to vote to exercise our vote for it, it will be nothing more than a Pyrrhic victory. Mr. Piscoli will withdraw his offer per the agreement with the South Fork Historical Society. Additionally, if he were to withdraw the offer, he may decide to execute the transaction in another form for which we have no interest, such as a long-term lease. I also think it's the right thing to do. The plans announced by the South Fork Historical Society for the rehab of the building are very consistent with the majority view at town meeting. Okay, Lisa.
Great, thank you. Good morning, everyone. So I have a couple comments and a couple questions. First off, on right of refusals in the past, I know most of them have been on 61A properties, but this is still a interest in real estate. The town has done a due diligence of reaching out to boards and committees and seeing if there's any interest before the board makes a decision. So I don't think, honestly, that doing that is going to potentially change what the decision before us today, but from a process standpoint, I would like to take the time to do that so we're consistent in what has been done in the past. That was the process that was used for the Deerfoot property, specifically since I sat on the board anyway. And so that's part one, that I think we should follow the consistency in that. Two is, I think, I have a few points that I think, for me anyway, before I sign off, that I would like to see done. I would like to have the right of first refusal be a condition of the town releasing its right. I think we need to have another right of first refusal on there. I think that I would like to see language that the preservation restriction is a condition of this as well. I mean, that was when this was originally sold for $21,000. It was at the will of town meeting with wanting to see it preserved. Not that I don't think the society will do that, but I think having it in writing and part of a condition for my release. The third piece is, I guess, the easements to some level are taken care of. So I guess those are my three pieces, and I wish Jay was here. Unfortunately, I couldn't reach out to him because I'm not exactly sure. Mr. Purple, do you know how long we have for the right of first refusal? Is it 30 days? Is it 90 days?
So the language in the PNS is very broad. It's not specific. It has no detail. I believe that the process, and I could be wrong, but I believe the process is normally 30 days on right of first refusal. But I don't think there are any limitations because there are none that are listed. There's no process that's listed in the PNS. So that would be a question for council.
I mean, I think we can get it done within the 30-day window. And lastly, I will leave that I know the society has said that, you know, they want work to start over Labor Day. The only permit that's pulled at this point is the demolition permit for interior work. So again, I think I'd like to see us do our due diligence. I'm not ready to vote on this today. And I would like to see, like I said, a preservation restriction be a condition. The right of first refusal be another condition. Again, it's a valuable piece of property. Take away the historic piece to it, and it was sold for $21,000. So I think the town is vested in making sure that hopefully that will continue to be preserved and it will continue to be a great asset for all the residents of the town. So I guess I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Sam.
Excuse me, Kathy, did you say me?
Yes, sorry, Sam.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, Lisa, good points. I guess I feel that the town has already basically done due diligence on this and that we looked at the facilities needs previously. I think town meeting spoke very clearly on it. I think that also town meeting and a variety of other inputs from things like the master planning processes have reinforced the historical value of the property to the town, which I think is an important one. And I think this is actually an interesting example of what I would consider to be a public-private partnership opportunity where we're using external funding to actually produce something of value to the town that otherwise we wouldn't be able to afford or wouldn't likely be able to afford. And I guess I have confidence that the process will proceed as proposed here without, again, either due diligence or additional conditions on the process. So I'm in favor of granting the request at this point. Thank you.
Andrew?
My position is pretty much the same as Lisa's on this. I think of the town's two, key interests here are in the parking and the easement on the adjacent parcel, and then also just doing the best we can to ensure that the property is indeed preserved, historically preserved indefinitely. And I haven't yet seen copies of what the society's plans are for those. I'd be interested in seeing them. I agree with Lisa. This is something I think we'll probably be able to work out, but not prepared to vote for this at this time because it's a significant matter. And I don't feel that I have done enough due diligence into it. And another thing that just struck me as odd is that the offer that triggers the right of first refusal is labeled as a draft agreement rather than an agreement. And that's just kind of odd. I'd be interested in getting the views on from Jay about that, what, if any, impact that has on us. And just one observation here. If you look, it was interesting to read the addendum to the PNS because, there were some representations about plans that were going to be undertaken in 2019 and they didn't happen, including like paragraph 2 says that the parties agree that if the proposed renovation of the village hall does not commence prior to January 15, 2021, then the town shall have the right to repurchase the 2 parcels and the buildings for the original purchase price stated therein. And I don't think that has happened. So I would be interested in getting more information about the exact plans and trying to work to ensure that there is as much protection for historical preservation as possible. I agree. I think Lisa made a very good point about continuing to have a right of first refusal that probably would have some more detail than the one that is in the current PNS. And really just kind of a process timing issue. I think we could, we're going to have some upcoming meetings in the next 2 weeks. And I don't see the harm in, discussing it at its next regularly scheduled meeting where there'd be more opportunity for public comments. That's what thanks.
Yes.
Chelsea, we can't see you, but it looks like you're here.
Yeah, sorry, I'm traveling, so I'm not in a spot to go on video. Thank you. I am not opposed to Kathy, what a lot of the things that you said. I think for me, it's just going through the right process. And if that's a 30-day window, then I think that's a reasonable amount of time for us to do what Andrew and Lisa have suggested. One further point that I had in terms of the parking is in the quitclaim deed, it referenced that the parking spots would be clearly labeled with signage. And I don't think that there are signs for those parking spots today. So I think that's not completely clear to the public, especially people who are coming from out of town and using Fayetteville Playground. So that for me is my biggest concern is making sure that that's clear, that that is going to continue to be used for town residents and the public visiting the playground there. So I think we need to tighten up that language, and I'm not, I did try to reach out to Jay. I haven't heard back from him yet. So I just think we need some more time to make sure we do our due diligence here. Thank you.
So, it looks like 3 out of 5 are not ready to vote on this today, so that is going to be the result of that. But a couple more comments that may add a little color here. So as far as more time, we received a letter on August 19th, right? So that's a week from today, or a week ago today, so 7 days of it. Andrew, I'll direct this one to you as the sitting attorney on our board. I talked to, when I first saw it, I've seen a lot of ROFRs, and I've never seen anything quite so brief and possibly poorly written as far as details go. So you're left to basically fill in the blanks. But I would say that what Mark said a few minutes ago, that 30 days is a fairly typical ROFR to basically give someone a time to respond to a deal that's on the table. So I'm happy with the process that Lisa outlined. But I would tell you, I think our 30-day clock, we already got 7 days into it. So maybe we need to make sure that we are going to deal with this within the next 3 weeks. In the meantime, I'm also going to make sure that Mr. Washington has seen the email from Karina Quinn that she sent it to Mark, she sent it to me, and I think she copied Mr. Washington on it.
She did.
Okay, so you see it then, as far as what needs to be done as far as planning board goes, so they can start getting that teed up too. So there's probably plenty for them to do in the interim, but I do think we owe it to Mr. Scully to get an answer and vote on this one way or the other ASAP. So does everyone agree that within 3 weeks, we're going to put this back on the agenda, and whatever due diligence anyone wants to do, they'll have the 3 weeks to do it? Is that-
Yes, Kathy, can I just ask a question? Can you forward a copy of that email that Karina sent?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And then also just to follow up, that we will send a note today to the boards and committees and ask if anyone has an interest in this, and give them a 1 week notice, Mark, that you need to hear back within 1 week. I'm assuming we all know the answer to that already, but I think it's been part of the process in the past, and we should certainly follow it. So if we could have Melanie send something out today, Mark, on that.
Yep. No,
Thank you.
okay. Do you want that just to departments or boards and committees or the whole universe?
In the
Why don't you
past,
treat
it's
it-
been departments
why
and
wouldn't
boards
you-
and committees.
To all boards and committees.
Yeah, because like specifically for Deerfoot, and again, that's the one that I had sat for, open space, conservation, none of them had an issue. I would imagine if you were asking me specifics, I would think recreation, based on the parking, historical, clearly. And again, I know what historical is going to say anyway, but again, it's a matter of just following the process. And Kathy, I think when we end up here in a couple of weeks, I don't know that the decision that could we have taken it today would have changed. I will just say that, but at least we'll have done what I personally felt was comfortable to move this along.
I appreciate that, Lisa, so I agree. A couple more things too that I think are relevant. I read the language on purpose because I want everybody to understand that it says clearly that if we don't have a fair market value deal, which we clearly don't, $100 is not fair market value, then we have to go out and get an appraisal to determine what that is as far as what we would have to pay. To Andrew's point, as far as the other paragraph that talks about he's got to start work within so much time. I don't know, again, that's not really fleshed out what work means. He has demoed the inside of the building. So he has done work. Again, I don't know if it rises to the level of what that contemplated because it's so subjective. So there's lots of uncertainty as far as what was written in the addendum.
Can I make one comment? That's
Go ahead.
okay. Just to echo something that Chelsea said, why it may be more from the parents of young children perspective, focus on the parking issue in the playground, is that it's very typical that on a nice day, like in the spring or the fall, a lot of people will go to the playground at the Fayetteville Field and the parking lines up on the west side of the street. There's not a places to park. So you park in that parking lot. It's unpaved and it's not very well maintained at all. There's often been these huge like sinkholes with lots of water in them. So, we would like, if the society is going to acquire that land and it would be subject to an easement in favor of parking. I mean, we'd also like some more better maintained parking and well-marked parking. It often actually is kind of an issue. It's just not, sometimes not safe. And that's an example of where I think, getting the input from the Recreation Commission can help us make a, good decision. And I mean, I'm sure that the new buyer would have an interest in working with us, is just to have better maintenance of that parking lot to help the people who are using the playground across the street.
I would think so too.
Andrew, just for clarification, I think one of the issues and one of the reasons why that was given, I think, for disposing of the building is because the septic system needs to be replaced. And obviously the septic system is going to, because there's no room with the building parcel, septic is going to have to go into the parking lot. So before any of that, before any paving or regrading or anything is done, and then have to be dug up to do that work, I think it's that work and then the parking lot can be addressed and put into a more permanent condition.
Okay, thanks.
Andrew, one more thing that you brought up, I just wanted to make sure that it's clear what you meant. So the easements that they were, the P&S rider was not recorded. The easements obviously are. So they're there, they're perpetual. So it sounded like you were maybe doubtful that they would carry over to the new buyer.
It's in the quitclaim deed.
Yes, yeah. So the offer or the draft agreement says that Mr. Deli Priscoli is agent of Fayetteville Hall LLC. He agrees to convey all interest and title to the properties to the society. So he doesn't have the extent of his interest is he has title to the property subject to the easement, this parking easement. Again, here's another opportunity where these have really long-term benefits. Just having some more detail about that easement, right? The easement is just, it's two sentences in there. And there's also, the deed does say that this is actually kind of a significant issue, is that the town conveyed to Fayetteville Hall, subject to the requirement that Fayetteville Hall maintain and preserve the exterior of Fayetteville Village Hall structure to substantially preserve same pursuant to its agreement with the Southborough Historical Commission. I would like to see a copy of that agreement. And then that sounds like it's kind of mimicking a preservation restriction, but there need to be the owner of the property can't hold the preservation. There'd need to be another party. And there have been, we have for the library facade, and then for the Burnett property, we have preservation restrictions in place where I believe, at least for the Southborough Historical Commission is the holder of the preservation restriction. Is that correct? No. What about for the, okay.
So, yeah.
All right, but there needs to be another party that holds it, right? So that's another thing where, we put our heads together and we can work out details that really protect everyone's interest and make sure there's, the type of public-private partnership that Sam is talking about.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay, so do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second,
Okay. Roll call vote. Lisa?
Aye.
Pam?
Aye.
Andrew?
aye.
Kelsey?
Aye.
and Cook is aye, so 5-0. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good day.
Thanks.